So like whenever I'm out, people are like, well, was it worth it? I'm like, yeah, I guess, you know, like it's so dependent on the person and like what you're looking for. Like your taste profile, mine, like preferred like palettes, like
of course,
are just different. Cheers to that.
Yeah, it's good.
That is nice.
It's nice. Still like the 114 better, but this is good.
So 114 more expensive than this one is? Or
yes, I would say, I think it's probably, within $5 to $10
oh, it's
difference.
Not, yeah.
I can't remember what the 114, I think it's probably around 25-ish, I would guess, and this was like just under 20.
It's amazing how much that 114, although it's higher proof, seems easier to drink, which I just don't understand. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it is dangerous. I would, you know, obviously these things are getting selected specifically for what they're going to do. The bonded has more restrictions around it than the 114 is going to have. So, you know, maybe the fact that the 114 is a much more of a blend of a variety of different ages. And perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, moving on to the next.
Let's move on to the next guy. Now, technically, this would not be next in row in pricing if we went by the price I paid, I think, or roughly the price I paid, but what I should have paid. And honestly, I bought this up in Illinois at Minnie's, and I will say that their prices are much more reasonable
than what you see
than what
than
what you'll see in a small town store or, you know, local mom and pop shop that, you know, oh, I've got a case of Weller, well, I can double the price of that easily and sell it. So this is our only wheated bourbon.
Interesting.
On this list, so we're gonna have a pretty big difference here. I
seriously.
believe. So.
Thank you.
I doubt the mic is picking this up, but the shape of this bottle has a very weird, it produces an actual audible noise.
So like glug.
Glug. When you're pouring.
It's just this little neck part right here where it produces air bubbles. I wonder if that's, I mean, they recently changed their bottle shape. I remember that.
I don't remember that.
So like the whole, or maybe not the bottle shape, but the branding definitely. I wish I had the old ones used to be more rounded with this kind of neck. They also made the same glug. I wonder if the point of this kind of like neck shape is to have that kind of aeration when you're pouring it at all. I wonder if that makes a big difference.
I don't know. And I guess we should say, since we are talking about medicinal bourbon, this is the next one. A license, this was APH Stitzel Distillery, which then became Stitzel Weller. If you want to know a little bit about that, we talked about it in our episode with Tashara Jones. You can go check that out. So yeah, let's give her another shot.
Cheers. Man, that was completely different from Old Granddad. The wheat just softens it so much. There really isn't any sharpness in the front or the middle of it at all.
No,
not even going down.
So soft. I would say the mouthfeel though of the Old Granddad, I prefer the sort of thicker mouthfeel. And this doesn't have it. This is made by Buffalo Trace, of course. Now owned by Diageo as well. So.
It's one of those things where it's like, I understand why people love wheated bourbons, and I see where they're coming from. It's easy to drink and whatnot. But for me personally, I agree with you where I like the Old Granddad better, where you have that kind of tingling when you're drinking it, like the mouthfeel, how much body it has, and the astringency of it all. This is definitely easy to drink. I've definitely drank a lot of Weller Special Reserve with, in my time, but I find when I'm trying to find something just like a little more interesting, I go for those higher proofs, so those ones with a lot more body or over
Yeah, of course.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
Yeah, and I think as you get more experience with whiskey, not just bourbon, but as you get more experience, most people lean into the cask strength stuff.
Yeah.
Most people will say, "Oh, I love cask strength." Maybe not necessarily high rye. Certainly, I do prefer a high rye bourbon to something wheated, and this is the juice that gets rejected for Pappy, effectively. And I've had the Pappies, and some of them are good, and some of them are definitely not worth the money.
I think it really comes down to now, like the whole Stitzelweller name too.
Oh, of course.
If you get I don't know what year was the last batch for Stitzelweller, like not early 2000s, but like before 2010, probably, right? Those Stitzelweller Pappies are phenomenal. One of some of the best. It's old stock. Like, of course, it's gonna be delicious Pappy. But now I feel like people are just. I mean, of course, the name's popular. Bourbon is now a huge boom for that market. And when you hear the name Pappy, you freak out, and people are paying thousands of dollars for bottles. And is it really worth it?
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not saying you should not try
Pappy.
The Pappies. You should. You should wait when you see them. I don't necessarily know that you should go out and buy them or try and seek that out, because you're definitely going to be secondary, or unless you like literally luck out into finding the thing.
Exactly.
Which is why, I mean, look, all these trace products up and down the line because of Pappy are rare. You can't buy, and I've heard some other reasons why you can't find Buffalo Trace here, especially in St. Louis, with the exception at grocery stores. If you want to find Buffalo Trace, go to a grocery store. But if you try and find it in a liquor store, because they're not product turnover isn't as high, it's harder to come by. And Weller is impossible, basically.
Here in St. Louis, for some reason,
For some reason, they've always had it at the Vinnies that I will drive to. You just can't.
The moment you cross into the Metro East area, or the moment you go to Kansas City, it's just like an ocean of it. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah, and I don't know. Drink, of course, it's like drink bourbon however you want. Drink the bourbon you like to drink. But yeah, I definitely think it's all worth trying.
Yes.
Preference-wise, if you gave me. If I had to say, well, give me whatever of the Pappy line, I'd take like the old Rip, and then I'd probably take the 20.
For me, it's the 15-year. I think that's like the perfect mark. Whereas the 10 is young. I've not had the Family Reserve Rye. I've had the Lot B before. Lot B, I think my choices are
like
two. Lot B, 12, and then the 15-year are phenomenal.
But have you had the 23?
The 23, I had, and maybe in the batch I had, of course, but it's like, it just depends. Like, sometimes it seems over oaked or it seems lighter.
Whatever it was. And I like to be able, I like the oak, and I really used to not like that flavor. And then I don't remember whether you got a chance to have that urban bourbon, that 10-year-old tiny barrel.
I think, yeah.
That was overwooded by a lot, but I still liked it. So there's that. But I've never been a huge fan of that, and I always think the 23 tastes over oaked.
Have you ever had the Orphan Barrel series before? It's a really interesting line. I believe they're like bottlings, if I'm not mistaken, out of Tennessee, but they're super interesting. So they have different lineups. Like one of them is called Rhetoric. One of them is called Whoop and Holler. One of them is called Forged Oak, like things like that, right? And they'll release their first one, and it depends on what age you want to release that, when I think it tastes good. A good example is like Rhetoric. There's I believe a Rhetoric 21, and then every year after that, they will release a Rhetoric 22, 23, 24, until they run out of that stock. And it's funny how much people think age, the older it is, the better it is, but it's not at all. It's
not true.
It's not, just a linear path. It's very, it's a roller coaster. There's one of them that I had, which was a Whoop and Holler 28-year-old. And it's like, I've never in my life had a 28-year-old bourbon before. That's just unheard of.
No.
And I was like, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this has to be the most amazing thing ever. And I was like, this just low proof, a little bit watery, and it's like just woody, and like that's about it, you know? There's no vanilla, there's no body, there's no, you know, tannin or anything, really.
Like everything is taken off but the wood to a certain extent.
Exactly. So, but it's just like interesting how people think that. But like the 23, there's some batches of the 23-year-old Pappy that are delicious. There's some batches of it where I'm like, it doesn't really hit the spot, you know?
Which is also why, I mean, there's a certain thing, and I'm certainly a fan of going and trying rare bourbons and that kind of thing. But how many times are you going to try a Pappy 23?
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to. You're like, oh, there's one here.
Exactly.
You're not.
The way I always kind of sum it up is if I'm curious about it and I'm trying to figure out whether or not it's worth it, I should probably get it because I'd rather try it than to not have had it and just always be curious about it, right?
Sure.
So like whenever I'm out and people are like, well, was it worth it? I'm like, yeah, I guess, you know, like it's so dependent on the person and like what you're looking for. Like your taste profile, mine, like preferred like palettes, like
of course,
are just different. Like, you know, like you like that woody note, and I like more of like the body of it. That's what I pay more attention to. I look for those like vanilla bombs and the caramel and the, you know, those baking spices.
Woody note.
Do you like rye?
I do.
Yeah, so like I love like high rye bourbons. Some people hate rye. Some people love wheated bourbons. I think wheated bourbons, like, you know, like that's not substandard by any means, not boring, but like they kind of just dumb things down, you know?
Right. I think that I agree with the sort of exception of, I mean, the obvious wheated bourbon is Maker's Mark, right?
Yep.
Maker's Mark, the regular product is great. Like it is, hey, you know, everybody has it. It's totally palatable. Everything is great about it. Cask strength is dangerous.
So good.
It's so good, but also high proof, so you have to be careful with it. But then when you get 46 and above, you get into the private selection, you get into the other things that Makers is doing. I think that they maybe figured out, and I don't know, I'd love to talk to somebody now, is maybe they figured out that, okay, we have this great product, we're known for this, and they really were the first distillery that started producing small batch, right? They kicked all of that off. And they also kicked off, they maybe not, and we're not even talking about them tonight, but we are. Maybe they kicked off the small batch. They also were like, the advertising campaign is, it tastes expensive because it is.
Yeah.
Right? And so they were at a time when whiskey sales were down and everybody was creating light whiskey, which is whiskey mixed with neutral spirits. And they went the opposite direction. And so that's why we have a craft industry. And still to this day, and I didn't even know this, but I'm pretty sure it's on the bottles. Like Maker's Mark comes from, I think it's 19 barrels or less.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I didn't know that either, but I think it's on the side of the bottle.
That's so interesting how they get such great blends that are so consistent, if it's especially 19 barrels and less. That's skillful.
Yeah. But, you know, 46, which, you know, we've talked about why that's important to Bourbon Friday, and, you know, those private selects. I mean, like, we've had some stuff, and we had some from the last hotel that was just...
Oh, man, that stuff was delicious.
Insane.
Tell them I said thank you again. That stuff was phenomenal.
All right, so next time on Bourbon Friday.
From my perspective about it all, is just like, I got into alcohol, like, actually, like, right when I turned, like, 21. I was watching Mad Men, which is, like, the worst influence ever for, like, you know, an impressionable, you know, college student. Got the haircut, wore suits, started drinking scotch. Hated scotch. I was like, old fashions, they're fine. But, you know, there are a lot of people who led me the right way to, like, oh, these are good spirits and these are bad spirits and, like, and whatnot. And, like, I thought that was just, like, a me thing, but it's super intriguing to see, like, a lot of people are very interested in, like, to learn about what they're drinking and the history behind things. And with liquor, like, there's history, there's science behind it all, there's branding. Like, no matter what your company does or what you like to do or what your company focuses on, there's something that always relates back, as you know, to bourbon or to alcohol in general. Yeah, exactly, right?
If you want to hear more bourbon stories, check out these videos. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to us. You can also find us on social. We are at Bourbon Fridays on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. See you next time.